Welcome everyone to this month's ROI webinar. We're glad to be back once again, this time joined by our friend Rohan Kapoor from Gorgeous. And together we'll be diving deep into how you can use your customer service center to drive loyalty, even with your most difficult customers. Yes, it is possible. So before we get ahead of ourselves and move into the topic, just a quick plug for the ROI webinar. Rohan, if I can ask you just to flip to a couple of slides. Here you have our beautiful faces. I don't think you need to see that. We can go on to the slide here. So before we get ahead of ourselves and into the topic, I just want to give a quick plug to the ROI webinar, the series that we run monthly. So Aziz, who is my partner on the call here and title CMO, really does a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes, of course, along with our partners like Rohan at Gorgeous, coming up with all these amazing topics to share with merchants like yourselves. So sharing a lot of gratitude for Rohan, his team, and as well as Aziz, of course, who often refers to himself as the most handsome man in the room. So without skipping another beat, I guess I'll hand off the talking stick to none other than Rohan. Off to you, sir.
No, I appreciate it, Dennis and Aziz, for putting this together and for having me in to participate on this ROI webinar today. I'm going to be talking about customer support and how to use customer support to drive revenue as well as loyalty amongst your customers. And so we're going to get to a couple of common themes and how to do that a little later in the presentation. But I did want to preface this conversation with who we are and what we do. So first and foremost, my name is Rohan, as Dennis mentioned. I've been at Gorgeous for 3 years now, and I manage a variety of our different partnerships. So it's been pretty, amazing to be part of the growth here at Gorgeous. I joined pretty early on. We now work with, as you can see on the screen, over 12,000 D2C brands all across the spectrum from early stage through to enterprise. And I'm here to tell you about what we are as a help desk and how we can use that to drive revenue and loyalty, and how to work with your customers to make sure that they're getting the optimal experience and interacting with your brand. So what Gorgeous is we are the #1 help desk for e-commerce. So what we do is we consolidate all of your different channels into one platform. So we bring in your email, chat, phone, SMS, social media. We aggregate all of those different channels. We give you this one clear and concise consolidated view of your customers, no matter what channel they're coming from. And then we'll integrate with your platform. So we integrate with 3 different platforms: Shopify, BigCommerce, and Magento 2. We are super, super heavy in Shopify Plus ecosystem. So when customers submit a ticket through any one of those different channels that I mentioned earlier, you immediately get access to their Shopify information in a side widget, order number, tracking information, shipping information, basic contact information, so that you have everything at your fingertips. And what we do is we instill a lot of automation with merchants. Not too much that it goes over the line, but enough where you can automate and still personalize messages at the same time to your customers. Generally speaking, we can automate up to 25% of responses or tickets for merchants within their customers. And when you automate certain responses, like where's my order, what's my shipping status, very common and repetitive questions, it frees up, as you'll see a little bit later, a lot more time for CX agents at the merchant to focus on revenue generating activities in their interactions with customers. And so with your platform integration, with your Shopify integration, you can bring in variables into your responses, like order number, like tracking information, like first and last name, to personalize that outreach to customers. And you can push actions back into Shopify. So you can create orders, you can draft orders, refund orders, duplicate orders, all directly from within Gorgeous, and push those actions into Shopify or the platform that you're using. And we are fairly international. So we are, as I mentioned, working with over 12,000 D2C merchants to this day. We're supporting over 40,000 support agents on a daily basis. I'm myself based here in Toronto, HQ's in San Francisco, but we do have feet on the ground fairly internationally. We don't have a restriction with which merchants we can work with on a geographical scale. As long as they sit on one of those 3 platforms that I mentioned, they are a good fit to install Gorgeous as our customer support help desk. And like I mentioned, we're early stage all the way through to enterprise. So we have some early stage brands just getting started in e-commerce, looking for a consolidation tool, all the way through to some enterprise brands that you'll see on the screen, like OVO, which Dennis is wearing his shirt today, so that's perfect timing, Steve Madden, Netflix, so on and so forth. And so we're building this platform for merchants to provide this exceptional customer experience, right? A fast and robust platform for e-commerce with this wide and deep app ecosystem. So not just leveraging Gorgeous and your platform, but all of the different apps that you have in place for email, for SMS, for shipping, for returns, what have you. And a constantly innovating roadmap. The very, very important thing about working in e-commerce is you have to constantly be on the ground with your merchants to understand what exactly it is they're looking for in new product developments and advancements, and how you're going to listen to those merchants to then build out those features and make sure that they're getting the optimal use out of the platform. And so to hop into today's conversation around driving loyalty and revenue through customer support as a whole, just generally speaking, I think it's really important to just kind of set the tone and understand what exactly it is that customers want when they're interacting with a brand through customer support. So first and foremost, customers want to be able to use as many channels as possible to interact with merchants. They want to make it as easy as possible to get in touch with that merchant, to ask a question, to submit a comment, to report an issue. And just largely speaking, they want to be heard. So as a merchant, like I mentioned earlier, it's really important that obviously identifying with your brand, you utilize the channels that you can have in place, like SMS or like social media and Facebook and Instagram, or email, obviously, or voice if that's popular amongst your customer base, and giving your customers options to get in touch with you. Live chat on your website, that's another really good example, so that they can get their issue to you as soon as possible and ensure that you as the merchant are looking into their issue ASAP and getting them a resolution. And on that topic, customers want a quick first response time and a resolution time. So some of the themes that I talked about earlier, like automation and machine learning, really help merchants to be able to get back to the customer in a very, very efficient period of time. And when you respond to customers in a sufficient period of time, even if you don't have the answer for them instantaneously right away, the fact that they know that you're looking into an issue for them, or that you're looking to track their order for them, or you're looking at a new product development for them, and you will get back to them with the answer that they're looking for, helps immensely in how often you're actually able to convert those merchants into actual sales. So getting back to your merchants in a reasonable period of time instantaneously will lead to conversion or increased conversion, and a resolution time shortly thereafter obviously is super important as well. Lastly, customers want this seamless, simple, and personalized process, right? They don't want to reach out to you as a brand and feel like they're a number, right? They don't want to just feel like somebody else in the queue. They want to feel super important to you. They want to be addressed, very simply put, by first name. You have information at your fingertips, like their order number, like their tracking information, like the address that the product they ordered is going to. You having all of this information and instilling those pieces of information in your responses to these customers makes them feel important. And at the end of the day, that is really what is going to be the thing that helps them resonate with your brand. So that, for example, if they're a first-time customer with you, they're going to come back and make repeated purchases with you as a brand because they feel like they can identify with you, that you are going to be their brand of choice, and they're going to add more to their cart, and they're going to come back for repeated purchases. And then right there, that makes that customer part of your community. So you can leverage that customer in your community to then word of mouth establish new customers. And this brings me to the fact that customer engagement is a very, very critical layer of the e-commerce growth stack when you consider a few different things. So 73% of customers will say that CX is an important factor in their purchasing decision. 90% will say that an immediate response is important or very important. So that's the thing that I was talking about earlier, just getting back to customers, that first response time. And 43% of consumers would pay more for greater convenience. So we're in a time where there is a lot of competition out there. And so if you're online, shopping for the next greatest water bottle, you go to brand number one, you submit a ticket to them, you ask them a question, that brand doesn't get back to you within 24 hours. There's a very good chance that that customer goes to brand number two, who also sells water bottles, and is submitting a ticket to them to understand a little bit more about their product. And there's a good chance that brand number two got back to that customer in a reasonable period of time, answered their question in a reasonable period of time, so much so that that customer now belongs to brand number two and not brand number one. And leading into those customer challenges, so we're finding that customers are waiting a very, very long time in order to get responses from brands because they're focusing on, activities that are very common, activities that are very repetitive, where they shouldn't have to focus their efforts there, where they can instill a lot of automation and machine learning. And so sometimes with merchants, we're finding that they have an over 12-hour first contact time, which is really, really high. And further to that, a 17-plus-hour resolution time. So actually getting an answer to the customer regarding their question or their issue or whatever it might be. And on top of that, the personalization aspect that I talked about earlier, they're feeling like a number. They're feeling like just somebody in the queue, that somebody that the merchant just has to tend to as this reactive, piece of customer support that they have at their company, but not a proactive way of engaging with a customer by name and by all their personalized pieces of information. And the last piece there is they feel like nobody's listening. So they feel like they have to repeat themselves a number of different times in order to get the answer that they want from the merchant. So that either they have to repeat an issue that they're having, or they have to repeat their shipping address, or something else that they might be having a problem with. And by doing that, they're increasingly growing frustrated by the way that they're interacting with your brand because you don't have this information readily available at your fingertips when you probably should. And merchants, as a result of that, will end up paying the price because, number one, this is huge for missed sales opportunities. So you don't take the time to engage with a prospect or with a customer in the right way. There's a very good chance, as I mentioned earlier, that customer goes to a different brand to make that purchase. Decreased efficiency. So merchants are spending way too much time on responding to where is my order inquiries when they could be spending time on super interactive conversations through live chat or through SMS or through social media, ways that you can be increasingly more proactive in engaging with net new customers or existing customers to drive them to your website to make purchases and drive revenue. But they're focusing their time on very reactive situations like somebody reporting an issue or wanting to initiate a return or wanting to just track their order, when all of these things can either be automated or customers can actually help themselves in these situations, which I'll show you how to do a little bit later. And ultimately, this leads to a decreased customer satisfaction score. And for the merchant, it leads to high labor and technology costs, right? Sometimes they're putting solutions in place that doesn't have everything under one roof. They're using multiple different screens, multiple different tabs. They're copying and pasting information. That needs more people. You need more people in order to be doing those tasks. Whereas if you put some automation in place, whereas if you put everything underneath one umbrella as much as possible, there's a good chance that you don't have to result that in high labor costs, but you can make everything as efficient as possible and even turn that labor into a sales generation tool. And the missed sales opportunities come in various different forms, but a few of them are conversions. So like I mentioned earlier, agents are tending to spend a lot more of their time on the support aspect of it, but not necessarily the sales aspect of their interactions with their customers. So customer support in the traditional sense no longer exists. It's no longer this reactive kind of feature or function that you have to have in place as a merchant and just responding to customers as they come to you. There are efficiencies that you can put in place as a merchant in order to be able to proactively focus your efforts on actually driving sales out of the customer support function. Like I mentioned earlier, through SMS, through social media, through live chat, engaging with customers, answering their questions, making suggestions for products so that they go to the cart and add something to their cart. This is also hurting return on ad spend. So by focusing your efforts on those very repetitive and common tasks, there's a good chance that somebody is coming and commenting on your Instagram ad or on your Facebook ad, and you're actually missing those comments that are super positive because you're focusing on things that could be automated. And so if somebody says on one of your Instagram ads, for example, hey, I love this t-shirt. I really want to, understand whether or not you offer this in a different color. That's an opportunity for you to be proactive in that outreach through your help desk, through Gorgeous, to respond to that comment on Instagram and say, yes, you know what? We do have this t-shirt in yellow. Here's the link to the product. You can come directly to the website. And by the way, I'll give you 15% off as a first-time shopper. You can be a lot more proactive in those engagements. And if you don't harness those social leads, it's going to naturally hurt your return on ad spend. And your average order value. So if you do have a help desk that you can where you can integrate your platform like Shopify, and you can integrate a number of your other different apps that you utilize in-house, like for example, Klaviyo for email marketing, or Loop for returns, or ShipBob for 3PL, or what have you. You can actually get all that information directly within Gorgeous. So you can get access to not only their Shopify pieces of information, but all of their information housed in those different apps like Klaviyo, like Yapo, like Attentive, like Loop Returns. And so if they submit a request to you, you can immediately have access to those different pieces of information. You have this 360 view of the customer, and you know everything that you need to know in order to be able to help them efficiently. And the high labor and technology costs also come in a number of different forms. So first and foremost, the theme that I mentioned a couple different times is agents are manually responding to tickets where they could be automating certain inquiries or helping customers help themselves. They're toggling back and forth between different screens. So on one screen, they have their help desk. On another screen, they have their platform. On a third screen, they have the different apps they use or social media, for example. Whereas having a help desk in place like Gorgeous, where you can integrate your platform, integrate your different apps, bring in your social media comments, you only have one screen open where you're answering customer inquiries, bringing in variables from your integrations into responses to personalize that outreach, and performing actions directly from within your help desk to push those actions back into their respective apps. Voice support is another thing that's super time consuming. So how can you take something like voice support and deflect those tickets through something like live chat or a way for customers to go in and help themselves, like a self-serve option. And point solutions, right? So having multiple different solutions in place, if you have a help desk and you have a different tool for social media, that's going to increasingly add to your technology cost that you have as a merchant. And not only that, it's going to make your CX agents a lot more inefficient because they have to go back and forth between different screens, copy and paste information, find different pieces of information. So you're paying for something additional and you're making things less efficient for your CX agents. And so how can I turn customer support into a profit machine? It's easy, just increase revenue and reduce costs. But how do you do that? Number one, on the revenue side, you're going to want to improve your conversions. So you're going to want to turn those shoppers on your websites into actual buyers. You're going to want to help increase the average order value and the number of repeat purchases that you have from your existing customers. And you're going to want to reduce costs and improve efficiency overall. How can you improve conversions? One of the most important ways to do that is to leverage machine learning or intent detection to understand what exactly customers are asking. So are they asking about something that is maybe in the pre-sales process that makes up about 33% of tickets? Are they asking about something to do with your shipping status? That's the next highest category at 17.5. Is it a ticket that actually requires no reply? Something that you can actually automatically close and not have to have a CX agent ever look at. It's really important that you as a merchant are understanding what exactly customers are asking so that you can handle those tickets as appropriately as possible. And if you can leverage intent detection, you can actually automatically route those tickets to specific sales agents or to specific CX agents that are specifically responsible for handling those inquiries. So maybe a CX agent is only responsible for handling, refunds, or maybe a CX agent is only responsible for handling product inquiries. Or maybe a third CX agent is only responsible for handling SMS tickets. You want to be able to filter those channels or those intent detection tickets to very specific agents so that they get handled the most efficient way possible. And be omni-channel. I've talked about this earlier, right? Understand which channels you need to have in place as a merchant to be able to allow your customers to get in touch with you. Obviously, email is the biggest category. It's going to continue to be the biggest category. However, there are other channels that are growing at increasing rates, right? I've talked about a couple of them already: live chat, SMS, social media. Customers want access to you as a merchant. They want to be able to submit inquiries through their Instagram DMs or through their Facebook Messenger or through your live chat feature without having to go to find your support email and submit a ticket through your support email or to call the phone number that you have on file. And so while email is going to continue to be, the number one form for customers to get in touch, it's going to start to decrease with these increasing use of channels like live chat, like SMS, like social media, because customers want access to you. And so it's super important that you're understanding, have I tried all the channels that I could possibly put in place? And which do my customers prefer to come through? Because maybe I want to spend a little bit more time on those very specific channels. And in the back end of your help desk, what you can do is you can actually track the revenue of specific channels. So you can see, where's most of my revenue coming from? Is it coming through my live chat interactions? Is it coming through my SMS interactions? Which agent is generating the most revenue? And how can I use that agent as an example to train future team members or help me focus on the channels that I need to focus on? All of this information is super important in order to obviously generate customers, but also convert those customers and make sure that they buy from your website. And a very important piece of this is that you want to put a customer engagement or customer help desk tool in place that is built for e-commerce. And that's what we are. We are built for e-commerce. That is the only niche that we focus on. That is our vertical. That is the lane that we're taking. And so what we want to do is we want to help empower brands to deliver this exceptional customer experience that helps turn customer support into a profit center and helps improve that customer experience, right? So this is a sales channel for companies. This is a way to improve the bottom line and actually turn this into a revenue stream. Customer support is no longer, like I mentioned earlier, this fixed cost that you just have to have in place as a merchant. And so what we can do is we can help brands be 30% more cost efficient using a number of different themes that I've talked about earlier, like putting automations in place or machine learning or leveraging self-help tools or deflecting tickets. We can automate 25% of tickets because a lot of those tickets, as I showed you in the intent detection, actually come from very common or repetitive requests like, where is my order? What's my shipping status? And ultimately what that's going to do is that's going to help lead to increased conversion, retention, and average order value amongst your customer base because they're going to be able to identify or resonate with you better. I've alluded to this a couple times, but how can we help customers help themselves? This is what we call a self-serve tool at Gorgeous, right? So if you just look at the stats, 86% of consumers expect self-service 2/3 of consumers actually try self-service before contacting a live agent. So, and if you're like me and if you're like most people, chances are if you're facing an issue, you're going to probably try to solve that issue yourself before you go and ask for help. And that is exactly what self-serve is. Self-serve is giving customers the opportunity to go in and perform certain actions by themselves. So customers can actually report an issue, they can initiate a return, they can track their own order, they can retroactively apply their own discount code. All of these tasks are perfectly capable within their hands. And by allowing them to self-help themselves, you as a merchant are freeing up a ton more time for your CX agents to, again, focus on those revenue generating interactions with customers through your different channels that are actually going to lead to sales. There's no point in having your CX agent manually respond to a customer asking to initiate a return or asking where their order is when they can get their automated personalized tracking links sent to them by simply clicking a button in the self-help tool. And customers expect the ability on that note to monitor their orders throughout every step of the shipping process. So they want access. 97% of customers expect to have visibility throughout the entire delivery process. So they want access to their tracking. They want access to their shipping information. They should be able to go to your website and simply click on a button, fill in their email, and get access to their shipping information so they know where their package is at all times. And they would never have to interact with a CX agent in that process. Again, allowing the merchant CX agents to focus on high value generating activities. And another thing that self-serve does is it actually keeps customers on your website or brings them back to your website. If somebody's looking to track their order, for example, they're going to go in, they're going to track their order, they're going to see what date it's going to arrive, what address it's going to, so on and so forth. But immediately in this process, by tracking their own order, they're actually back on your website. They're back on your website potentially shopping for new products, or maybe they saw something last time that they never actually added to cart and they're having second thoughts about it, and maybe they add that to the cart the second time. But they're bought back to your website, and maybe you have a sale that you didn't have 4 days ago when you placed the first order. So there's opportunities to bring customers back to their website to help themselves. And immediately they're going to go through different pieces of information on their website, spend more time on your website. Chances are they're going to resonate better with your brand and make more purchases or add more to their cart. And self-serve also allows you to produce this 24/7 support tool, right? If customers are online at 11:30 p.m. outside of your office hours for your brand, you don't have anybody on your CX side actually manually manning the live chat feature. Customers can go in anytime they want and track their order, or again, initiate a return, retroactively apply a discount code, report an issue. They don't need an agent to perform any of these tasks. So they can around the clock go to your website and perform these self-serve actions. Agents don't have to be around for this. And so you don't have to staff or employ anybody around the clock in order to handle very specific inquiries that make up a huge percentage of tickets that merchants face in the e-commerce ecosystem. And if you look at the cost of live support, there's a study that says live channels like email, voice, and chat cost an average of $8 per agent. If you can deflect a lot of those inquiries through self-serve, you're going to save a large number of dollars on those interactions. So not only you're generating revenue out of customer support, but you're also saving on deflection by putting something like self-serve in place. And you're going to be able to eliminate these low impact inquiries. So 18%, as I showed you on the slide earlier on, of all inquiries are actually related to shipping or order status. So we did a study in 2021, 31 million tickets in a 6-month period over 2021. 18% of those tickets were related to shipping status. So that's 31 million tickets. That's a lot of tickets. And immediately what you can do with that 18% of tickets is you can send them through the track and order feature in the self-service flow. So again, agents are not having to handle those tickets manually. Customers can go in and help themselves. And what am I going to do with that time back? I'm going to go and generate sales by interacting with customers differently and a lot more proactively to bring them to my website. And further to that, 30% of all inquiries can be automated using self-service in chat and also in the help center. So 30% of all tickets in a 6-month period had one of the following intents: something to do with shipping or status, or return a request, or ordering or canceling an order, or initiating a refund or a request for a refund. And so if you filter out those requests and you understand what exactly your customers are asking, you're going to be able to automate, generally speaking, 25 to 30% of those inquiries so that, again, time is freed up for sales generating activities. And to conclude, these are some of the challenges that are faced by merchants and support teams. So number one, agents are overwhelmed with a high volume of tickets. Time is spent answering frequently asked questions like where's my order, what's my shipping status, instead of those more urgent matters that actually require a more personalized attention. Merchants end up losing sales because they can't quickly respond to those pre-sales questions because they can't identify them. And those high first response times and ticket resolution times are leading to low customer satisfaction scores. How does efficient customer support help? Just putting a solution in place that is actually going to help you drive revenue. Number one, it empowers shoppers to quickly find answers to common questions, like we just talked about with self-serve. It gives agents much more time and energy to focus on very specific questions from shoppers through different channels like social media, like SMS, like live chat, that is actually going to lead to sales. It allows them to deflect where's my order tickets, which could account for up to 30% of your incoming inquiries. And you can leverage AI to respond to tickets, get suggested responses, understand how you can put rules in place to automatically respond to customers with very personalized pieces of information. All of that is at your fingertips through the various integrations, through having everything in one place under one screen, and not having to go back and forth between multiple different locations to copy and paste or find different pieces of information.
Oh, I think
And
that was probably an
and
extra one.
the filler slide. But yeah, that brings me to the end of my presentation. We didn't get into very much Gorgeous's product itself, but I wanted to talk about some of the common themes with respect to how you can make things a lot more efficient on the CX side of things by putting various pieces in place, like automation, like machine learning, like self-service, to be able to help customers help themselves. And ultimately, as you've heard me say several times throughout the course of this presentation, we are freeing up agent time to focus on sales generating activities. And if you're able to put these things in place, chances are you're seeing a new revenue stream out of customer support, out of those proactive interactions with your customers by not being reactive and just responding to everyday inquiries like where's my order.
Wow. Rohan, you're on fire, man. You just delivered a master class and not only customer support, but Gorgeous. I feel like I've learned more than I have since I've been working with Gorgeous. It's like so much in there. Like I think my mind is going towards the topics of AI. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you, but I see a couple that have come up in the chats here. So let's start there first, and then I will circle back to a few of my questions because I want to pick your brain on a few things. So
For sure.
first question here in terms of automations and machine learning. Okay, this is actually along the line of what I wanted to ask you too. So I guess good. So how should merchants best leverage automation and machine learning today?
So leveraging machine learning. So like I mentioned, we work with over 12,000 merchants. And so what we've been able to do is we've been able to analyze all of the tickets that these 12,000 merchants have done with their customers to understand what it is customers are actually asking about. And so machine learning will actually automatically tag these inquiries with very specific phrases that you might have in place, like shipping or refund or cancellation, something that will allow you to filter these specific inquiries to very specific agents, for example. You can also manually tag tickets further to machine learning, but it allows you to identify what exactly the customer is asking about.
Mm-hmm.
How to best use automation. So I talked about this very briefly early on, but it's important that you don't over automate, obviously, right? Like you can't automate every single ticket that comes through because then you take the personalization aspect out of it. And I think what Gorgeous and what we're doing on our side of things is we're helping merchants automate to the point where they don't lose that personalization aspect, right? So it's only the things that are very common and repetitive, like where's my order, and other common inquiries that very specific brands might get, where they can actually pull in pieces of information from their Shopify integration or from their platform integration. They can utilize other variables from different apps, like maybe their reward points, the rewards app that they're using in their response to customers. But it's all very personalized pieces of information that they can then send out automatically to customers. When it gets to a point where it's a very specific question that automation can't necessarily handle, or if you automate it, it's really going to take the personalization piece out of it, there definitely is that threshold. And that's why we say around 25 to 30% of tickets on most cases we can automate for merchants. But certainly, you have to find that threshold that works for you as a brand, and put those automations in place appropriately.
Right, right. I kind of, an analogy I think of is sort of like the library book drop off, right? It's like, what service can I think of is going to be sort of like, so you provided the example of where's my order, where's my shipment, right? So that's an easy thing you can automate, right? the library book drop off in a way is like something easy that is automatable or, can just be left. There's just a kind of a hole there, right? So speaking a little bit more about automations, obviously the world doesn't stop at Shopify, right? There's a lot of the ecosystem beyond Shopify, like Gorgeous, right? Other best-in-class applications that exist there. And, we continue to meet a lot of them. We continue to work with a lot of them because of the clients that have different needs. Um, One thing that I've noticed is a lot of people have their own setup for CS support, right? So like you mentioned a couple of times, Gorgeous will be leveraged almost like as a window, a dashboard for the CS team to support the customer wherever they're coming from. They don't really care where they're coming from, but the end goal ends up being this is kind of like it's a full-on extension of the customer experience, right? So we've seen things on our end relating to like loyalty apps being integrated into that, right? Or maybe seeing like what is the total lifetime value of this customer so we can like determine, okay, are they like in a different tier? Should we treat them like as a VIP perhaps, right? So if you were to distill it down to maybe two examples, because I just want us to focus on things that are super impactful, what would you say have been like the most impactful experiences that you've seen of using like the Gorgeous dashboard? So telling your team, like, you know what, forget everything else, just use this. Like, what would you say have been those like really valuable nuggets that you see your clients have gotten out of it?
Yeah, I'll actually kind of branch off an example you just used there with the VIP scenario, right? I think with the integrations, and this brings me back to my point of having Gorgeous or having your help desk as this foundation to a lot of other apps in the ecosystem, whether that's your platform or other apps that you're using for a variety of different activities. With the VIP feature, what you can do is you can immediately see if a specific shopper has spent a certain amount with your company before, and say that example is 10,000 just for the purpose of this conversation. You're going to be able to tag that directly within Gorgeous as a VIP customer, so that immediately when you see this shopper come back through any one of those different channels that we talked about, through email, through live chat, through SMS, through phone, perhaps, you're going to know to provide that person with that white glove treatment. You're going to want to assist them as much as possible because they spent $10,000 with you before. They could probably spend at least that or more the next time they come back to your store. And so tracking your VIPs directly from within Gorgeous and having access to that information is actually a really good example. But
Mhm.
also on the app point you made, my second point here, with the apps that you have in place, for example, if you're using like a Yotpo or an Okendo for reviews, having access to different pieces of information is something that we've seen a lot of merchants do really, really effectively and put that into their responses, right? And so if somebody comes through and says, hey, where's my order? You're going to want to respond to them with those pieces of information that we talked about, their order number, their tracking information, their shipping information. But maybe they're a subscription company and maybe you want to take their recharge piece of information and you want to put that variable in the response too and say, hey, this is your order number, this is your tracking information. But oh, by the way, your next shipment is due on May 31st, 2023. Just as that little tidbit piece of information to give them to help them understand when their next shipment is coming, or are they still subscribed, or what products are they subscribed to. And it helps them out. And even though they didn't ask about it, you give them that piece of information that's extremely valuable. And a similar example with the reviews point I was going to make there too, you can see what types of reviews customers have made on your store before. And if they submit a ticket through any one of the channels that we talked about, you can immediately see if they, submitted a 2-star review or a 5-star
Right.
review. And you can use that information to then either respond to that person publicly or privately directly from Gorgeous as a help desk. And so you have access to these different pieces of information when customers submit tickets just by basic contact information, right? And so you want this 360 view of the customer. And so having that 360 view of the customer is extremely important in identifying, for example, VIPs or getting back to customers with very specific pieces of information.
It's amazing to hear. All right. Well, very complete answer there. I think, in terms of other questions that come to mind, there's, I guess you've kind of alluded to it a couple times, automation, not really. ChatGPT, really cool, right? Like generative AI, like now we're kicking things up a notch where we can truly use that perhaps to full out replace, customer service agents perhaps one day, right? Or maybe augment some of their work so they work alongside something like a bot that is able to pre-write some of their answers or maybe fully write their answers and they just QA it, right? So part of our philosophy is that, we don't fully believe at Title that generative AI will completely replace the person just because there's a certain level of training that has to happen with the model specifically. and guardrails that need to be set up, right? So it'll be interesting for us to observe where things go. But without you kind of, I guess, disclosing too much of the roadmap, is not to make any investors unhappy. Would love to know a little bit more about your thoughts around how this plays into the product. Where's Gorgeous going to take it with ChatGDP specifically? How do you make my team of 5 agents feel like 10, right? Tomorrow, like without me having to add anything, right? Is that possible? Is that a life that we can live in? Rohan will let us know.
Yeah, no, honestly, some very good points there. And to touch on your roadmap comment there, actually, we have a publicly available roadmap, just an FYI. So anybody can actually go on and see what we're releasing in Q2 or Q3 or Q4 into
Awesome.
2024, right? And the benefit of working with e-commerce merchants and only e-commerce merchants is that, as I mentioned earlier, we can get directly on the ground with them, and listen to them and understand what it is exactly they're looking to build out of the box. And if it is something that we don't currently have in place, we hear that a certain number of times, immediately we think, okay, maybe this is something that we should consider adding to the roadmap. And then we publicize that anybody has access to that information.
Right.
So that I just wanted to make that point. So if anyone's curious in understanding what we're rolling out next, but on the AI piece specifically, so yes, I think like the augmentation point you made is something that I would resonate with. Being able to suggest specific answers to very specific inquiries is something that we're working on. It's not necessarily something that's been released at this point, but we want to be able to suggest answers for CX agents to have access to, whether those are the exact answers they're going to send out to the customer based on a question that they get, or something that they can edit and then send away. The purpose
Right.
is to help them in a system, using AI to be able to very, very quickly respond to very specific inquiries to then, again, focus their efforts on sales generating activities, right? And so the point
Hmm.
that you made around, taking 5 agents and making them feel like 10 is exactly what we want to do. And then oftentimes, with the automations, with AI that, we're working on in the back end right now, there's a good chance that with these things in place, you can, if you have a team of 5, maybe you only need 4 CX agents. And, that's a whole salary that you're saving on the CX side of things. And at the same time, as a merchant, you're driving sales out of the CX agent, right? So it's a win on
Yeah.
both sides by appropriately putting in the right amount of automation and the right amount of AI. And that's, to your point again, that's not to say it's going to completely overtake the whole CX team,
Hmm.
but there are pieces where you can obviously make things more efficient for sure.
Right on, right on. Okay, one more question until while we have you, Rohan, you're, I think you put it very well in terms of like just the. I'm actually very curious to see the roadmap now. I did not know it was publicly available, right? But in terms of like the AI component, I can imagine how the CS team might be able to actually work alongside that. Part of my mind, sorry, I know I digress a little bit here, but part of my mind goes towards perhaps even personalization or recommendations using, an AI to almost serve up personalized recommendations to the customer you're working with, right? Being a cross-selling engine through that channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't digress too much. Let me kind of get on to the last question, then we'll wrap today's session up. So
Okay.
the last question here is just, let's say I'm a merchant, maybe I'm an SMB merchant, mid-market. So, I've been around the block a few times. How can I today be more proactive? Let's say I'm already using Gorgeous, so I'm a customer, right? Like I would say a lot of people on Shopify are on Gorgeous already. So good job, Rohan. But what can I be doing to be more proactive to engage with customers? Obviously, with the intent of driving more revenue, right? I'm not looking just to get, a little sticker here or like a thumbs up. I'm looking to get hard hold revenue, but
Mm-hmm.
without being too salesy, what can I do? I don't want to be soliciting business out of customers either. Do any ideas come to mind?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think a couple things that I want to talk about is leverage something new within the platform. So self-serve is something that I talked about in the back half of this presentation. Are you a Shopify brand that uses Gorgeous that isn't necessarily right now helping customers help themselves, right? Are you allowing them to go in and track an order or initiate a return? And if not, maybe that's something that you want to start to put in place to understand how many tickets you can actually deflect through that feature so that, again, you can focus your time elsewhere. So that's piece number one, something I could recommend in terms of how to optimize the platform. Maybe a second point is to leverage the channels that exist today, right? I've talked about them several times throughout the presentation, but like SMS, for example, social media, live chat campaigns. How can you put these things in place that allow you to proactively engage with a customer? So, for example, somebody sits on your product page. You have a T-shirt that you're selling on your website. it has 6 different colors, but 3 of them look exactly the same. And I, as a shopper, don't know exactly which shade of red I actually want to purchase. That's the perfect time for you to pop up a live chat campaign on that page, proactively engaging with the customer and asking them specific questions that will help them to choose the right product or the right color. And that immediately, as you can tell, is going to lead to a conversion. Same thing with SMS. Are you rolling out a new drop? Do you have a very exclusive discount code for your existing shoppers? Can you announce that through SMS to your customer base, to your community, so they have first access to that discount before anybody else does? Immediately bringing back your return shoppers. Through social media, are you able to identify if a comment someone left on your ad is positive or negative, or potentially their social lead? Maybe someone had a negative experience. That's an opportunity for you to go to that comment, respond to that comment, provide them with a discount code, try to make it better with them. And if they left a positive comment, maybe that's an opportunity to turn them into a shopper. And so understanding which channels you have in place, not every channel is going to work for every different brand. So this is not to say like put every single channel, in place if that's not something that resonates with you as a brand, but try out different things, right? Understand, can you perform very well from an SMS perspective and drive sales there? Can you perform very well from a social media perspective or a live chat perspective? And you can track all of this information in the back end. So you can see where your revenue is getting generated from. And if you decide that, this is not a channel that works for me, I'm not generating revenue here, then that's totally fine. But you might actually surprise yourself and figure out that, I'm generating quite a bit of money here, and this is somewhere I want to focus going forward.
Amazing. Well, Rohan, thank you again, not only for your presence, but your thoughtfulness, your leadership here in terms of everything that you contributed to the product, to the community abroad, in terms of Gorgias and Shopify. It's been very insightful. A title we call ourselves, we say, work with the tide, we are the tide, be the tide, right? So I think you're exemplifying that, just about being the guide, helping others, right? So thank you again. I would say for anyone that wants to learn more about just customer service management enablement as a whole, let's not pigeonhole it only just to Gorgias. Reach out to myself, reach out to Rohan, don't be a stranger. I think we're going to be more than happy to talk to you, or if not, just connect you with someone that is able to kind of get you the information you need. We're always going to be happy to chat. That being said, if we don't know the information, we'll be able to get it for you. So thanks again, and thank you everyone for joining, and hope this was an educational and valuable session for everyone. Take care.